Welcome to Jude, the podcast. I am David Jude, your host for this show. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing, downloading, etc., and sharing our shows. It's very meaningful to us, and again, I can't thank you enough for it. I'll share with you, over the past few years, I've become more interested in learning about alternative medicines. Now, I don't like using that term. I don't really know what it suggests, and I am using air quotes as I record this introduction. But for me, I've been looking for other natural solutions, which may be out there somewhere, to help us heal from what ails us. And I know for me, I'm looking for something maybe different than the traditional going to the doctor and getting yet another prescription given to us. There feels like there has to be a better way. And as I use that for this introduction, it sets the stage perfect to introduce our guest for this episode. And I want you to meet Dr. Jacqui Kinzig. Now, that's Doctor of Acupuncture, Jacqui Kinzig. Dr. Kinzig owns Sustaining Health Acupuncture. And by the way, she was one of the first in Kentucky to earn her doctorate in acupuncture. That's pretty impressive if you ask me. I really enjoyed listening to her, hearing her philosophy on how she treats her patients. She sees patients as individuals that require unique treatment plans. And I love that, meaning she's not treating us like commodities and pushing us through the system and you get, 5 minutes with the provider. She's going to spend the time talking to you and learning about you and then developing the right treatment plan. I learned a lot in this episode, and I hope that you do too, and I hope you enjoy it. So listen in. Learn about how acupuncture can become part of your personal health plan. Be sure to check out Dr. Kinzig's website. That's sustaininghealthacupuncture.com, sustaininghealthacupuncture.com. And since you're on the internet, you might as well check out our show sponsors too. That's Shameless Care. They can be found at shamelesscare.com. Be sure to use the promo code Jude to get $30 off your first order. And you might as well visit DPJ Consulting also. It's dpjconsulting.com. Again, thanks to everybody. Appreciate all your downloads, all your listens, all the shares that you're given. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This should be pretty exciting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Yes. Good enough show already. Yeah. This is good. So what I see, we usually do this on a Monday, so I'll usually lead off with the question, how was your weekend, what'd you do? But let's stick with that. What'd you do last weekend? Anything good?
We finished up shopping for the angel tree.
Yeah.
Ran a bunch of Christmas errands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did some last minute stuff at the office for the week.
Yeah. Did you adopt some kids, I guess?
We did. Yeah. We try to get a couple when they're about done. Like, there's always so many left.
Yeah.
We usually try to get some then.
Yeah. We've always done that. Not always. We've done it the last 3 or 4 years, I guess, at home. We've tried to pick the Kiwanis Club at home always has a bunch of kids. And, and we've always tried to do that. And this year we didn't. We just decided it's hard enough as it is to finish what we have to finish for ourselves. So this year we didn't. I feel a little bit guilty for that, but,
Boundaries a lot of times make us feel guilty.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't necessarily. It's okay to have them, I think.
It's okay to have them. Yeah. That's right. Well, that's kind of what we got to. Is like, hey, this year it's probably okay not to.
Exactly.
Other years we try to choose like the biggest family that has like 8 people or whatever, because it always feels like those families get left out. And we thought we're pretty fortunate and we're pretty good about, feel good about where we are. So let's grab those people and try to help out. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's. I'm sure everybody tries to put good in the world every way that they can, and sometimes when we can't do it the ways we tend to do it, we feel bad. But you're still out there putting good out there. I'm quite sure of it.
Thank you for making me feel better about that. That's right. I want to try to remember that. I'm putting good out in the world. Back up a little bit.
Lots of ways to do it.
That's right. I'll tell you another boundary since you said that. Another boundary that I've been. I've made a big decision in life here at these other boundaries. When you go to like a fast food restaurant now and you scan your credit card or whatever to pay, there's always this tip thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so for a while I was feeling really guilty, like I should probably tip them. Mm-hmm. And so I was, right? And then I was thinking, I'm paying like $32 for a hamburger or something, hamburger and fries and a Diet Coke. Like, I don't think I'm going to tip just because they're here at the cash register doing their part. So
yeah,
that's my big decision lately.
I like that decision. I think that's a fair decision. It's a big thing in America, isn't it? The tipping culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of talk about that too. Are you supposed to tip or not supposed to tip in those things? And
it's confusing anymore.
Yeah.
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 We get asked. So I've had people ask if they should tip me. You know, and I'm like, goodness, no. You don't tip your acupuncturist. Usually, that's not. We're not going into that realm.
Well, that's a great question, right? To lead us into this whole thing.
Yeah.
So let's jump into a little bit. You're an acupuncturist.
I am.
Yeah. We can finish the tip conversation first. Yeah.
Okay.
So would you call yourself a services industry?
Gosh, we walk a really fine line. It's funny, acupuncturists walk a fine line in a lot of ways. We kind of walk a line between Western and Eastern medicine, and we walk a line between like healthcare and service industry too, right?
Right.
So we're in the middle.
Well, that was a nice, safe answer. Because you would tip yourself, or you wouldn't tip yourself. Others would tip you probably in the services industry.
Right.
So to the point of your question, you don't tip your acupuncturist.
No, not usually. So we provide some services that are going to definitely seem much more like a service. So like cosmetic facial acupuncture, right? We're going to do those. Most of what we're doing is much more healthcare related. So we dip our toe into the service industry, but I would still, as a whole, say you probably don't need to tip your acupuncturist.
You don't have that at your little credit card machine up front, like
no. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. That would be so awkward for people.
Maybe we should implement it here, since we're services, we're not anything else.
Just see what people do. Yeah.
We'll see if we can add that to the website.
There you go.
Yeah, tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work for billable hours. We'll work for a retainer. Tips accepted. $20 is $20.
Yep.
Listen, we say that a lot. Yeah,
it's true. It all counts.
Sometimes a guy needs $20.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, then let's jump into a little bit more. So I don't know a lot about acupuncture.
Okay.
Actually, I know very, very little, if anything, about it.
Okay.
So let's just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Tell me what it is.
All right. So acupuncture is a way to regulate different systems in the body. So it helps to not only work on the hormonal system, it also works on neurotransmitters. It helps to regulate the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. It works on the digestive system. It helps with things like sleep, pain. It loosens muscles, decreases inflammation. It's a very broad form of medicine. We can affect so many different things, and that's why there are so many different kind of umbrella types of acupuncture that fall under acupuncture as a whole.
So you're thinking about hiring a private investigator, huh? Think knowledge, experience, and trust. Think DPJ Consulting. Listen, we're the folks you want on your team. Whether it's a criminal matter, corporate, or an administrative issue, or maybe something more personal, you need to make the right choice for you. Our house of expertise at DPJ Consulting can help you with investigations, and that could mean a whole lot of different things. Pre-employment background checks, personal VIP security, and so much more. Check us out at dpjconsulting.com. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, or give us a call at 855-TEAM-DPJ. That's 855-TEAM-DPJ. Give us a call. It costs nothing to talk. It costs you everything if we don't. Okay, so what I hear from you is you're lumping that into medicine.
It is definitely, it's a form of medicine. Yeah. It's a more holistic form of medicine. As far as, that's the way it's categorized here in the United States. We look at the whole person. So when somebody comes in for, say, shoulder pain, I might do some orthopedic testing. I'm going to look at what dysfunction is occurring and how we can reduce the pain. But I'm also going to ask them questions about their sleep or their emotional state. Because say somebody comes in with shoulder pain, but they have very high stress at work, they're not sleeping well, they've got, maybe some digestive issues going on. We can decrease inflammation systemically by treating some of those other things. And that's also going to help the shoulder instead of just looking at the shoulder. And so that's kind of the way that acupuncturists tend to view the body. Sometimes we do, depending on the person, but as a whole, usually we're not just looking at one small piece.
Okay. So a couple other basic questions, and if I can remember where I want to go after that, we'll do it. So when I was researching it, there's two pieces that I'd like to ask you about.
Okay.
The first one being every article seems to reference this as traditional Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why is that, and why is that important to us?
Okay, so traditional Chinese medicine came about, I believe it was in the 60s is when that term began to be used. And essentially, different forms of medicine like herbalism, what's called Cui Na, which is a Chinese massage, and acupuncture, along with some other things, were kind of grouped into one. And that was considered traditional Chinese medicine. Previously, in the past, say 2,000 years ago, you might have seen an herbalist or an acupuncturist, things like that. And when it was brought over into Western culture, it was all put into one, and it was named traditional Chinese medicine. And so a lot of the ways that we study now incorporates all of that. And so it's considered TCM, but there are other forms of acupuncture as well. So we also have Japanese acupuncture. There is more orthopedic style acupuncture, which is much more based on trigger points and like Western anatomy. And neither of those fall under the TCM umbrella. But I would say that traditional Chinese medicine is probably the most common form of acupuncture practiced here in the States.
So when I was reading that, right, and then let's give the other title here, but is alternative medicine.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm reading those two things, to me, it delegitimizes, is that a right word?
Yes. Uh-huh.
The concept of acupuncture.
Yeah.
Because it always seems like it's pushing it into another category somewhere. It's almost as if the articles are trying to, what am I trying to say, put it on a lower shelf?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Does that sound, am I thinking right?
Well, no, you absolutely are. And I've been fortunate to enter the field when I did. I've been doing it a little over a decade. And when I first started, it was still very much kind of cast aside. We only became a licensed profession in the state of Kentucky, I think in 2006 or 2007.
So it's new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was being done, but it wasn't it wasn't regulated under the medical board. So it became more legitimized at that time. Now, they still, in a lot of places, a lot of articles, and even some other types of providers will still look at it as alternative, meaning it's something outside of the mainstream. That is changing. We're seeing most hospitals have acupuncturists on staff now. The VA is actually, they've kind of led the charge in reintroducing acupuncture to the U.S. Healthcare system. And so the VA started referring patients for acupuncture back before I even became an acupuncturist, before we were seeing referrals from people at UK, and, now we get them from all kinds of doctors around here. But they actually tend to lead the way, not just for acupuncture, but for all kinds of different forms of healthcare. The VA is pretty cool like that whatever you see the VA doing, you can assume is going to start to trickle down over the next decade or so.
Well, and to me, that makes sense because they're federally backed, right? Mm-hmm. So it would signal to me that the federal government is starting to dip their toes into it, figure it out, trying to regulate it, manage it, et cetera.
Well, it absolutely. And a big problem is that for a very long time, one of the reasons that it was cast aside is acupuncture has not fit nicely into the research paradigm that we like to have over here in the United States. So as an acupuncturist, I don't usually treat people the exact same way. I might have two people in the room in two different rooms at the same time, and they might both have, left shoulder pain that is radiating up and causing a headache, and they might have completely different needles in. And that makes it difficult to design a double-blind study. So it makes it hard to really assess outcomes without bias. It makes it hard to look at exactly what effects are happening in the body. And so it's difficult to study compared to, like a medication or something where we have an easy placebo. In fact, what they used to do is they would use what's called sham acupuncture for research, which would be where a provider would take a guide tube and they would press down on the point, but they wouldn't actually put a needle in. And that was supposed to be the person didn't know if they were receiving acupuncture or not. The problem is once we started introducing like fMRIs and things like that to see physiological changes that were happening in the body, we were getting similar effects, albeit not as strong, just from stimulating that point with a guide tube. So even that was having some type of effect on the body. And then when you talk about a medicine that has, you know, as I discussed in the beginning, such a wide range of effects, it's difficult to pin down, you know, how in the hell is this working? What is this doing?
Right.
And it's only been in the last really less than 10 years that we've been able to start to explain some of the effects that we're having. When I was in school, we weren't given all of the anatomical or physiological effects from a Western medicine framework of what the points were doing because we didn't know. And now we know so much more.
What the acupuncture points were doing.
Yes, exactly.
The places you put the needle.
Yes. Okay. The effects that they were having.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were able to say, well, this is what it's doing from a Chinese medicine framework. So, you know, talking about the body's energy, qi. Mm-hmm. We didn't even really have a good Western medical concept of how to explain that. And so it was viewed as, well, here are acupuncturists and their energy workers manipulating this thing we can't see that a lot of people were saying doesn't even exist. And, you know, that's alternative medicine.
Right. Well, so I was going to ask, how do you balance that? Because to your point, right? People are saying energy is just a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a concept. It's a construct, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can't manage it and you can't tell me how it's working, then how can I accept you as a legitimate, valid medicine service, whatever else, right?
Yeah.
So how do you balance that?
Well, I had to start out early figuring out how to do that on my own without as much of the research. And I would just try to use analogies as much as I could for people in ways that made sense. So we have a condition, just as an example, called liver qi stagnation in Chinese medicine, which is essentially stress. But without boring anybody or getting into too much detail, think about...
We have plenty of time.
Yeah, I know, right? Think about energy in the body wanting to move, okay? Energy always wants to flow. It's like water. And when we are stressed out, when you get really tense and you are anticipating something, you kind of lock up. You tighten up. You feel tightness in your chest. Your traps and your shoulders lock up. That is stagnation. That is lack of movement. You are feeling that your energy is not flowing, all right? And over time, if that continues, we can start to see all kinds of sequelae. So we might see headaches. We might see PMS symptoms. We might see heart issues, digestive symptoms. All kinds of things can come from this original issue, which was this stagnation. And so I would try to find ways of, like, it's not simplifying it because that is what's happening, but it's a simple explanation of a much deeper shift that's occurring in the body, and find ways to explain that to people. And even if it didn't fit in Western medical terminology, my patients, 11, 12 years ago were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then we could explain, okay, and this point is going to go in and it's going to release that. You're going to feel some movement. And then they feel like they can breathe more deeply. Well, yeah, we've created more space there where you were tense, right? It's a very basic way to explain that. Sorry, hit that. And then what happens is over time, we're starting to see more and more that more research is being done to say, okay, hey, when we put this point in, this is happening in the brain. So we can see now that, for example, there's a point on the leg that is good for vision. Why is this point good for vision? Didn't used to be able to tell anybody that. But now we know that when we have an fMRI machine on and we needle that point, the optic area of the brain lights up. So there is a connection there, and now we can see it. So those kinds of studies have made my job much more easily because now I can reference that, right, and say, oh, yeah, this is what's happening in the body when we see that. So starting out with analogies, and now research has kind of followed to where we can say, oh, hey, this is what is actually happening in a Western medicine framework. And now that we can kind of, I hate to use the word legitimize, but that's really what we've done is legitimize it to more Western medicine-minded populations, we're able to raise our footing a little bit, I would say.
Why is it so tough to do? Why is this concept of legitimizing your art, what you're doing, why is that so hard to get accomplished?
Because acupuncture touches on things that we can't see. And I am a big fan of Western medicine. I really I treat Western medical providers refer to them, get referrals from them. And I think more and more we are starting to see, really even more since the pandemic, that we almost, our vision got too narrow. We stopped looking at the whole picture, not just with the body, but and with our lives as a whole. But that was the thing that we were facing as a profession, was we're looking at the body in these what might look at overly simplistic ways, like, oh, hey, it's cold outside. We need you to put more warm fluids in your body. You need to cover up parts of your body that are exposed to the cold. You might get sick, and you have Western medicine providers saying, well, that doesn't cause any issues. You don't need to do that. But we also know that you feel a lot better if you come outside from the cold and you've been bundled up than you do if you were outside, in a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And so it's just these things that are almost like intangible, that were difficult to pin down. You can't look at it under a microscope. You can't study it that well. And they're almost like no-brainers. And for some reason in our culture, that seems like, well, that can't be real. That can't be anything.
Right. So when you were talking about society, I guess you're talking about medicine as a whole is overlooking some of these things.
Medicine as a whole, and our society too. Yeah, even outside of medicine. Culturally, we don't look at things the way a lot of other cultures do.
Let's talk a minute about sex. Sex is part of life. It's beautiful and it's essential to living a great life. Enter my friends at Shameless Care, who have created something cool for your personal health care. Shameless Care offers a variety of products you may be interested in. ED treatments, STI treatments, STD testing. So how does it work? Well, that's the easy part. You go to shamelesscare.com, you choose the product you're interested in, you complete an online questionnaire, which is reviewed by a medical doctor, by the way. Pay for the product, and in a couple of days, discreet packaging arrives right to your doorstep. Their customer service is second to none. They're always responsive, and they care. Listen, Ashley's the best. Tell her I said hello. They're a small business ran by people like you and me, and they're incredible. And the best part? We can save you some money. Click on the link in the show notes. Use the code JUDE at checkout. It's JUDE. And save $30 on your first purchase. That's not bad, huh? Visit our website to learn more. Shamelesscare.com. And don't forget the promo code JUDE. Wow, what a deep topic that we could jump in there, right? So, I mean, there's I don't want to call it a propaganda machine, but there's messaging that exists, right? And we're all kind of hardwired into believing this messaging. And so it feels like acupuncture is one of those things, and we can lump 3 or 4 other things in there, I think, as we go. But it feels like acupuncture is one of those things that's maybe a disruptor to our common thinking. Yeah. But it's legitimized. I mean, it's, again, I hate to use that word too, but it's kind of where we are at the moment, I think. No, it is. And it's so legitimized. It's been really funny as an acupuncturist to kind of just try to stay in my lane and, not fight a fight or just say, I'll just keep showing up and doing what I know to do and see. But, another example of even when we have the research, people trying to push it down, there are, even here in town, physical therapy practices who advertise their dry needling services as it being different than acupuncture, and when you look at their webpage or the information they're putting out, they're saying, well, acupuncturists focus on an energy force and bringing that into line in the body. We focus on science and anatomy and muscles and things. And it's such it's overlooking a big part of what we do, right? Because we have to have anatomy and palpation, and I have to know the muscles and their insertions and their origins and where to needle and how to dry needle and do all of these things. So it's like they take this one part of what I do and say, well, because they do that, we don't do that part. We do this other part. And I don't know. It's like they take what we're doing and just ignore it. But then the research they use to support dry needling, a lot of these companies that train these outside providers in dry needling, and that's where they're getting this advertising from. The training companies that travel to the United States have this message out there that it's not acupuncture. But when you look at their research, the research that they are using is acupuncture.
even stated in the title of the research. It is
Sure.
not dry needling research. It is acupuncture research. And so it's an odd thing to just sit there and quietly be like, okay, sure.
Okay, sure. Are you a movie fan? You a movie buff?
Yeah.
Did you see Anchorman?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So when I'm hearing you talk about the damn physical therapists, I think of the Channel 4 news team that shows up in the alley. All the news teams got to fight.
Yeah. Well, right. And I don't want it to sound like, I treat physical therapists or refer to physical therapists. There's some needles. There are some muscles that I don't want to needle. I don't have extra training in it. I have no desire to get training in it. And I know some physical therapists that needle them. I'll send people to them. It's just these companies that they're spewing this information that it's not, they're twisting things essentially.
Oh, back to the propaganda.
Exactly.
So is acupuncture overseen by a board?
The medical board.
So just like a regular
Yeah.
normal medicine doctor.
Yeah. We're overseen by the medical board.
Okay. And so doesn't that board want to put the stop on these daggone physical therapists using needling?
Oh, no. And I should say, I don't care that other professions needle. I don't mind. I think the more people that needle, the more relief we can get people. I just wish that they wouldn't denigrate what I do to try to act like we don't know what we're doing,
Right.
because that's what they've been told, because we actually do know the anatomy and things too. But no, to answer your question, the medical board in Kentucky, we have a very small scope. I've been told we were lucky to get it by some of the people that fought for it initially. And, there's a lot of things that you can do in other states as an acupuncturist that we can't do here. Yeah. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to do what I can do.
Well, that's a nice way to say it. I was thinking of some of our work, right? Mm-hmm. Some of our investigative work that we do here, and we have some state contracts for licensure.
Okay.
And so one of the complaints that we get from some of our work happens to be that people are trying to portray themselves as one thing when they're not licensed to do it. Mm-hmm. And so when you were talking about the physical therapist, kind of changing their verbiage.
Yeah.
They're still actually, seems to me, practicing acupuncture.
Yeah.
And it seems like that'd be in violation of somebody's oath.
It's a really gray area. This has gone all the way up to like the national level. And essentially we were able to get codes, CPT codes made for dry needling, because we had our acupuncture codes, but there wasn't anything for dry needling. And so that's what ended up coming out of it. And now the CPT codes, if you look at them for dry needling, mention, no retention of needle. And so there's still a lot of providers that are not acupuncturists. I'm going to make some people mad, but it's true. There's still a lot of providers here in town who are putting the needles in and hooking the e-stim up and leaving the patients on the table. And they're like, that's dry needling. It's like, no, that's, there's, what else are we going to say? Like the CPT codes are pretty clear. That's acupuncture at that point.
Yeah.
But, that's
so
not my fight.
Well, again, you have a good approach to it that as long as people are getting help, but, you're also very, very highly educated and trained in what you're doing. So you don't need me putting needles into somebody because I don't know what the hell I'm doing with it, right?
No, I just hope, when I refer to other providers for like an area that I don't want to needle because that's just not my space. I make sure I send to people that I trust their training. They haven't just had like a weekend course. Because, you can, as I think even athletic trainers can needle now. You can go get a weekend course and don't quote me on that. That I don't know if they need more, but there are weekend courses out there that people are taking and able to needle. It's in their scope. And they might be doing it somewhat safely, but I am not trying to toot my own horn here. But I can't tell you the number of patients that have had dry needling by a non-acupuncturist and then come to my office and we do it and they're like, wait, what was that?
Toot toot.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? All it is you got to think somebody else is doing lots of things all day long and they might needle a few times. That is all that I do. all day long, right? Right now, like 70 patients a week, I'm putting needles in them. I've got a method of doing it, and so does any other acupuncturist, I would hope.
Right.
It's just going to be a little bit more comfortable a lot of times. I'm sure there are other forms of providers out there. One of my mentors is actually a chiropractor in Canada, and he's one of the best needlers I know. He does mostly acupuncture. So he's, I think it's about how often you're doing it.
Yeah. So then, tell me the difference between a dry needle and acupuncture.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two?
So the needle itself is the same. So the term dry needle is because it's essentially not a hypodermic needle. There's nothing in it. We're using a filiform needle, okay, with nothing in it. And dry needling is a form of needling where we are thrusting a needle in and out in order to get a twitch response from the muscle to release a trigger point. So many of the trigger points that are mapped on the body overlie acupuncture points. There are some that are different. There's some acupuncture points that are not trigger points, and there's some trigger points that are not acupuncture points. But as a whole, most of them kind of overlap. And so with a traditional acupuncture, when we're putting a needle in, we're going to put it in and we're going to leave it in. And it might have, 20, 30 minutes in the body, depending on what we're treating. Versus, again, with the dry needling, it's much more in and out, looking for a very specific, fast response.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that helps some. Yeah. Alternative medicine. So this has become pretty interesting to me over the last couple of years, really since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I'll share my opinions, and that's all it is.
Please.
Right. My wife's now retired, I guess, 30-year nurse. And so, and she stopped nursing somewhere around the pandemic or so, to stay at home, be grandma and stay at home and just, enjoy life.
Awesome.
And it's like, hey, we're in a place where we can do that. So please do it. Don't feel the pressure to do whatever. If you feel you want to walk away, then now's a good time to do it. But one of the things that she found, and these are my words for whoever's listening, right? These are my words. One of the things that she found is that, in nursing, you had all these regulations, right? And I'm going to mess this up, but just go with me for a second. So some of the tubing that they could run could only be like 36 inches or something like that. And I guess there's a sterilization concern if the tubing gets too long or cleaning or whatever else. Okay. But suddenly when the pandemic hit, tubing could be, 100 feet long. And suddenly that's acceptable and we're all good, and take away all these things that yesterday would have gotten you fired. Today it's like, that's right. Well, how can it be right? I mean, I spent 30 years over here. And so anyway, it's just this moving goalpost of regulations. Yeah. And then again, not trusting a lot of information that's put out there on both sides of a topic.
Yeah.
Because you don't know or at least I don't know what's accurate or inaccurate anymore.
Yeah, no. Well, in anybody who is good at doing research, anybody who studied research knows that you can, if you look hard enough, even at one study, and you run enough analyses, you can make it support whatever you want to make it support.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We like to rely a lot on research in this country, or, and these standards and things like that. But yeah, they can be moving goalposts, unfortunately.
I guess maybe it's Joint Commission or someone that had, the tubing things, and suddenly all that goes away. Yeah. Right. Because of a pandemic. And you're like, I have a hard time with that. I have a really hard time with that. Yeah. And then I'll share a story about she and I, that has really opened our eyes to trying to consider alternative medicines, right? Is we did testosterone hormone therapy, right? And it started for me for weight loss. I felt like I needed to lose some weight, and I did. And so I reached out to a local group here. Okay. Because I'd found myself fluctuating over the years, and steep ups and steep downs. And over time, if you look at a graph, I gained like a pound a month for 7 years, right? Okay. And I could vary that from time to time, but if you look at the trend, I thought, I mean, shit, what else can I do? I mean, I can crash and lose some weight, but I can't sustain that. Yeah. And trying to get regular doctors, I guess, I don't know what I'm supposed to say there, but regular doctors on board. Yeah. And we would do the blood work and we'd do the testing, and they're like, well, your testosterone's at the very low acceptable range, so we won't touch you. And I'm giving them all the symptoms. Something's not right.
Yeah.
And I felt boxed in, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't fit a definition, and I get it. I'm supportive of that.
Yeah.
I understand. Anyway, to my point. So we decided we went to a place here in town and said, hey, this is what I'm after. What's your weight loss program? And of course they were like, it's calories in, calories out, for lack of a better term. Right. I was like, well, I know that. I don't need to pay you this great big amount I just got to be disciplined. So that's on me. I can do that. But she started telling me, it's like, your hormones are probably out of whack. And I was like, couldn't even tell you what that is. Right. I have no idea, but let's test them. And sure enough, yeah, I've been complaining for years about these things. Well, so sure enough, comes back, the testosterone is low. And I thought this was like snake oil, right? Pappy's elixir off Andy Griffith or something. It's like magically all my levels are off, and magically I need your services for this price. Convenient. How about that? So at first we thought that was the snake oil. We thought, okay. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to try it. Why not try it? And I've complained about these very things. And if this is a solution, then I need to look at it. And I don't know that I can call hormone replacement therapy testosterone alternative medicine, but I'm just saying it's led us to start looking at other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got the pellets shoved in my butt and it's been life-changing. Yeah. I mean, freaking life-changing. And so to my wife, I went back and she's like, what are you feeling? And I was like, I can't even tell you. I mean, I can't even put it into words. It's not one particular thing, but I was like, you got to do this too.
Okay. And
so being the crotchety 100-year-old nurse, she was like, I don't know about that. So we did it. And she's like, holy crap. Yeah. Life-changing.
That's awesome.
And so that was the catalyst for us to start looking at. Then there's a bunch of other stuff that we have just closed off our minds to and been biased against, I guess.
Yeah.
And really over the last couple of years, we thought, let's start researching some of that stuff and see what else is out there. There's a lot of natural stuff that's here that we just have not considered. That was a long story to get there to say, this is interesting to me because probably up to a couple of years ago, I don't know where I would have felt about it.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad that you guys feel so much better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I actually see that a lot. I mean, as acupuncturists, for some people, we're first stop, right? But for a lot of people, we're last stop. They've seen everybody else and they're coming and they're like, my blood work's normal. And they'll bring in their blood work. And, normal is so relative, using, for example, thyroid numbers. Somebody will come to me with all the symptoms of potentially like hypothyroidism, and they've never had their, free T3 or anything done. And their TSH is within normal limits, but it's like, 3. And so I'll send them, to someone who refer them and they can work and, they get that TSH down. So it's still within normal limits. It always was, but now it's closer to 1 and they have their life back. Right. And so it's like on paper, if we want to look at these scales, you were within normal range, but we want to look at what is normal for each person. So maybe, they're extrapolating as a whole. We say that this many people, the vast majority of people fall somewhere in these numbers, right? That doesn't mean that's what's right for you. And that's one of the differences kind of in more holistic healthcare, and a lot of more, I don't want to say mainstream, but what you sometimes see or what you sometimes get at certain practices.
Yeah. Well, so that's another complaint too, is that it feels like in the traditional medicine or traditional doctor's offices, we're just becoming a commodity, right? You're just a cattle moving through a gate.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you get 5 minutes, much less 15 minutes. And I found that I started loving the people that would just listen to me, and I could talk for hours, right? But so I know I don't have that, but I found I really enjoyed somebody who will just listen to me for a second.
That is, your treatment should start from the moment that you walk into an office. You need to be seen and you need to be heard. And I think I could talk to you all day about insurance companies, but I think before they kind of started running things,
right?
that is more what you got in medicine. And I have a unique viewpoint of that. So my dad was an oral surgeon, and I helped do his office management, and I saw firsthand what insurance what kind of constraints they put on our healthcare providers. And I am, for a long time, I thought I wanted to be a vet or a doctor, and I am so glad I did not go that route, because they don't get a practice. It's all about charting and putting in a certain number and making, crossing T's and dotting I's and actual patient contact, putting their hands on you and getting to talk to you. They don't get the time to do that anymore because of the people that are kind of running the show.
So that's another thing that led us to look into alternative answers, solutions, right, is medical billing. And I can say now I refuse to go to the doctor unless I abso-freaking-lutely have to. Not that I'm scared of them. I'm fine with it. And I trust them. And our family doctor is a good guy, and he listens, as best as he can in this short time limit. But the medical billing that comes out of that, I loathe it. Into this one practice that I said I don't care to go to. And I have insurance, and I guess it's okay, insurance, right? And we'll pay our thing. And the next thing you know, you get this is not a bill. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And then you turn around and get something. I don't know what it is. My own ignorance, I suppose. But then we'll be turned over to collections and whatever else. And I shouldn't say that, but I'm not paying it because I'm getting things that say this is not a statement. It's not a bill. It's just an informational piece.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're late on something. I was like, well, hell, I don't even know I got a bill for it.
Yeah.
And where did this amount come from? And nobody can ever answer where it comes from.
No, it's the medical billing and the way everything is set up, fee schedules, and it's a very murky world. We'll say.
Yeah, you're being nice.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on this.
I'll see if we can get it out of you here in a little bit.
I look forward, in a lot of states, like for example, California, acupuncture is a mandated benefit. So if you have insurance there, you're going to get acupuncture coverage, which is amazing, right? And it makes me really, really happy. And it also terrifies me as a provider, because the way that I practice now, where, if I need to sit down and I need to sit and I need to talk to you and I need to do these other things today, I'm going to do that. And I'm very, very fortunate that I have awesome patients who understand that. Like, I typically don't run late, but if I am, there's nobody that's given me a hard time, because they know if they were the one that needed that day, they're going to get it. And I can do that because I don't take insurance. And so when that day eventually comes, it's unfortunately probably going to change the way that we have to practice.
Will it?
I think for newer acupuncturists, it will. People that need to take insurance. I am hoping I will have been doing this long enough that I will be able to continue to stay out of that game. I mean, and again, it's not that I want to make some, charge a certain amount, and it has nothing to do with that. It is truly about, when I very first started, I took insurance because I was very familiar with medical billing from having worked with my dad. It's a joke. I mean, even as a provider, you can call and you can get pre-authorization for services, and they're always going to have that little quote on the bottom that says this is not a guarantee of services. They can straight up tell you incorrect information. You can tell the patient you're only going to owe this. You can treat them 10 times. And then it turns out, oh, sorry, they gave you the wrong information.
Yeah.
And now the patient can't afford to pay you, and the insurance doesn't. I mean, it's just, and the number of times that kind of thing happens, it's just, yeah.
It's awful. We're going through some things now at home. And because it's the end of the year, we're pushing them off to 2024.
Okay.
Things that we should not. Things that we should be treating yesterday.
Yeah.
Because they're that serious. Come to find out, we've got these deductibles and we've got these other things. And I thought, well, they're scheduling it in the last week of the year. We've not paid anything because we don't go to the doctor. And so we would have to pay this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then they're literally turning around the next week and scheduling something else, which means we would have to turn around and pay it the next week too. And so we thought, we just can't do that. And so, we were saying, hey, we've got to have these things taken care of, but you're back to this medical billing to say I also can't double my payments.
Right. Yeah.
For literally 5 days difference, 6 days difference of a calendar.
Insurance companies kind of have, they've got both ends, the providers and the patients kind of hamstrung. They really control a lot.
I went to the doctor once and they asked for my insurance. And I'm a pretty respectful guy. I mean, I pretty well go with the flow, but sometimes I'll take a stand, and usually if I do, I become an asshole with it because I want to. Yeah. I want to see the stand out, right?
Yeah.
I guess I was in this part. But anyway, I went to the doctor and they was like, do you have insurance? Like, no, I'll pay cash. I'd rather just pay you. And they were like, well, you can't. It's like, why can't I pay you cash? They're like, well, it's illegal. It's like, it's illegal for me to pay you cash to see the doctor. And it's like, yes, it's illegal. I was like, I've never heard of any law that says it's illegal.
No.
I would be violating the law to pay you in full in cash.
Cops on you.
Yeah.
This man has cash.
Yeah, this man. Yeah. Don't trust him.
No, that's absurd.
Then they'd be like, shit, he is the police at the time. It's like, he is the police.
Right.
He probably stole it.
I think, right. Yeah. It's cash pay it's confusing for people, I guess. Yeah.
Well, so it just fueled my distrust to say, yeah, you don't want to give me the discount for the services because there's a cash price to them. What you want to do is confuse this whole thing, bill the shit out of my insurance. Yeah. Triple bill or whatever I'm not asking for, but you're going to bill the shit out of my insurance and then turn around and bill me for whatever money that you want to bill me. It's arbitrary, it feels like at this point.
It is. And a lot of people don't realize. So when you get those, of course, this is my opinion, but having done this, you get those huge bills and we're like, where are those coming from? The way that's set up, and I'm not defending anybody because I know it's taken advantage of, but say that you have got 5 insurers that you take as a provider, okay? And you know that one is going to pay you $30 per visit. We'll use acupuncture thing. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter how long the patient's there. Everything you do, you are going to get $30. And then you have another one that's going to pay you 70% of what you bill. So when you go and you set your fee schedule, you want to look at where your income is coming from and set something that is going to make you a reasonable living, that you can actually pay your overhead. Recognizing that, you might only see 2 people that have this insurance that pays a lot more, but they're going to help to offset that insurance that more people have that's paying so little. And then so that's your one fee schedule that you have. Now, if somebody pays, we call it a cash pay discount, but really it should be a same day discount. So say that your insurance company was just super on the ball, which is never going to happen. And they actually paid your provider the same day that you received service. They would have to get the same, what we call a cash pay price, because it's actually a same day or prompt payment discount. All right. So for me, like I charge $95 for an acupuncture treatment with the same day discount. And that has to be only a certain percentage below what your normal rate is on your fee schedule. So there's all these things that go into it. But what can look like this exorbitant amount of money sometimes is done because they're trying to they found some kind of companies that are paying a certain amount and they're trying to offset those lower paying companies. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's right. That's the way, unfortunately, that like insurance companies have kind of driven providers to do. And so it's a mess because then, if you have a deductible to meet and now you're the one responsible for paying that difference of that high cost, you would have been better off paying the same day price, right? Not even using your insurance. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. I've never heard it described as same day.
That's what it technically should be. Yeah. We call it a cash pay discount. And it's, I'm going to get myself in trouble. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not all, a lot of times you're not, like if you're a cash pay person and you're seeing at the doctor, you're still going to get the bill later and pay it later and you're going to have a certain discount. I don't know how that works with hospitals or managed organizations, but as a small private practice, it should be same day. So if somebody comes in and they don't pay me the day of their treatment, like they, oh my gosh, my check didn't come in, I need to pay in a week. Technically, to follow all the regulations, I'm supposed to have them pay whatever my actual fee schedule is. They don't get that prompt pay discount. Otherwise, it's considered like I'm giving too much of a discount to certain people and overcharging insurance companies. Does that make sense? So there's so much that goes into it that like on the back end isn't looked at. Yeah. It's ridiculous, honestly.
I'm smiling because you said overcharging insurance companies. But yeah.
The
other way around. But.
Well, as in like the amount, the amount that's on paper that's getting charged, it's never what they pay, right?
Right.
But if So that higher amount.
Right.
But
yeah, there was something else I had recently. I know we've gotten off topic here, but I guess I own that we've turned into bitching about medical billing. But
yeah, I mean, like I said, I can do that all day.
There's a couple. It just seems like everything we touch that way has turned out to be this crazy pricing structure and, insurance stuff and CPAP equipment, let's say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've started looking at that recently to say, why am I paying this every month? And, so I go to the suppliers and they're like, well, it's an insurance game.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, my God, I asked to pay cash for the machine. You wouldn't let me pay cash for the machine. I'll pay cash for the whole damn thing. Every month I'll pay cash for it. No, this is what you got to do. And so their game was they bill insurance declines it. They send something back, they negotiate, they settled out, and the next month do the same. I was like, why can't you just tell me it's $50 or why does it got to change every month? And anyway, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll just get it on Amazon or something and I'll pay somebody. At least somebody will come to my house with it. And
there you go. Yeah. It's a shame we have to do these things, but
yeah, it kind of is. All right, I got us way off topic there. So thanks for entertaining me for.
I was right there with you.
Yeah. I'm just getting you started on this medical billing thing. Yeah, we'll get your motor running here in a minute.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start sweating.
So you are a doctor of.
Doctor of acupuncture. I have to make that distinction very, very clear. Yeah. I'm not an MD. I'm a doctor of acupuncture.
Have I hit on a nerve?
I got.
See what I did there?
I got in trouble one time. Oh, I like that. Look at you.
Yes.
Acupuncture pun.
Yes.
My favorite is acupuncture is a jab well done.
The difference a vowel can make.
Right. Oh. Yeah. There was a picture that was published of me that I didn't do. Like I wasn't part of it. And they labeled my name as Dr. Jacqui Kinzig. And an MD complained that I was like falsely advertising, and I had somebody investigate.
Yeah.
And I worked with somebody. Yep. And
daggone investigators.
I know, right?
Like, tricky.
I should have checked my email. Like,
Yeah.
No, but they were super nice, and they were like, I don't see anywhere. They told me, they said, we have looked website, social media. We see nothing where you have misrepresented yourself as a doctor. It's just this one.
Yeah.
This one picture that was published. So I had to like write a letter of apology and everything. So now I'm just like, nope, not an MD, guys, doctor of acupuncture.
So is that a PhD? That type of doctor?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, you go through the same type of process as a PhD. It's its own. It's kind of hard. It's more like a PsyD, like a practicing doctorate. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't guess I really appreciate the difference between them all. I mean, I've lumped non-MD doctors as PhD type doctors.
Yes.
So I really don't know the distinction between if you're saying there's like a third category or another category.
Yeah. So, well, there's a difference between like getting your PhD in psychology or your PsyD. And then there's, for example, say like physical therapists, right? Now they're DPT, so they're getting a doctorate of physical therapy. And so I this is just my own distinction. I don't know that it's actually been organized anywhere. I look at like, like the doctor of physical therapy and doctor of chiropractic, doctor of acupuncture, those kinds of things. It's kind of more of a hands-on, we're not necessarily having to do, you're doing writing and research and things like that, but there might not be a full like dissertation.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
OTs, I think, are starting
OTs,
to get there as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that a good move? I mean, it signifies more education, I guess.
Yeah.
More prep, but.
I suppose, I mean, I'll be honest, my personal opinion, I think it's just done because of the way our culture is. Because almost all of these professions, mine included, we have to go and we're getting a ridiculous amount of continuing education every year to keep our board licensure. So what you get, right off the bat with that additional education, for me, it was an additional like year and a half, I think, above the master's to get the doctorate. Did it make me that much better of a provider? No.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
But people feel like it did, right? So I think there's a lot, I can't speak to I don't do the other professions. Maybe there's a bigger difference there, but I could have gotten the same thing with, continuing education.
Well, I mean, there is something special about it, and seeing it on your website, Dr. Jacqui. I mean, that title does mean something.
I think I have a funny idea of the whole title doctor so my mom was a nurse and my dad was an oral surgeon, but like growing up, if we saw providers, they were all my dad's friends. So we would go like after hours or to houses or, you know what I mean? And so I didn't have this distinction growing up of like, oh, these people are doctors. This is who I go to if I need something.
Yeah.
They were just, and so even now I'm like, yeah,
that's just
the
Freddie.
Doctorate, but yeah, it's just a name, it's just a title.
So do you have to have the doctorate?
No. So they are working towards what's called a first professional doctorate, which is what physical therapists have already done. So it used to be you had a master's in physical therapy, you had a master's in acupuncture. Now the first professional doctorate means that you go into school and you come out a doctor. And that's what PTs have done. That's what chiropractors do. And acupuncture is moving towards that. Several of our schools have that, but not all of them. You can still practice with just a master's. And a lot of providers, especially that, graduated around my time because the doctorate wasn't really much of a thing then, will continue to practice with just a master's degree.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess it's always changing and evolving.
It is.
Like everything else, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there a lot of doctors of acupuncture?
We're getting more.
Yeah.
As more schools open that up as a pathway. So, for example, when I graduated, that wasn't a thing. I got my master's. I went back later on and got the doctorate. And so now that more schools are offering that, there's more opportunity for acupuncturists to do that. And now, the newer ones coming out are going to have doctorates. So we're going to see that more and more. But right now, I think most in Kentucky do not.
Okay. All right. Let's get into maybe the services that you offer. And so you talked about spending some time with a patient. So if someone comes to you for your services, what does that look like in your practice?
Well, it depends on what they're coming in for. But as a whole, like as a general rule, they'll come in and we'll do an intake. That intake might take 5 minutes. It might take 45 minutes. So, and that's just like with everything else we do. That's going to be tailored to the person. I treat people who are coming in because their physical therapist said that they need work done on their shoulder. It's very clear. Here's where the restriction is. That's all they care about. They are not interested. It doesn't affect their sleep. They feel great. Everything is good outside of their shoulder. Nothing else is going on. That's going to be a 5-minute intake, right? And then I'm going to do whatever style of needling we need to do. I do several different styles. And then probably some manual therapy. So they'll rest with the needles in. And then manual therapy, we might be cupping. We might be doing gua sha, which is scraping, or Graston technique. It's become popular under that name.
Now, you were nodding your head like David. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Right?
I don't have a freaking idea what you're saying, but I'm going to nod just because you're nodding.
You're nodding right there? Yeah.
That.
That.
Yeah.
It's working. Are you familiar with fascia, the connective tissue? Okay, so your fascia is
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that is a way of us addressing any adhesions that are present in the fascia. So with cupping, we're going to be pooling everything up into a cup, and that's myofascial decompression. And with gua sha, we're going to be scraping with a tool. I explain it to patients like you're ironing out kinks in saran wrap. Okay, think about saran wrap around your muscles. We're ironing out the kinks with this. So we'll follow up with manual therapy, something like that, and then set up the treatment plan and get them on their way. Versus across the hall, I might have somebody who feels like everything in their body is going wrong, right? And they've seen the specialists and they're on 10 different medications and they need to talk and they need somebody to figure out. That's one of the things that acupuncture excels at, is finding the root imbalance. So for most of us, especially when so many different things are going wrong, like kind of for you, right? Like the root imbalance was testosterone. There was something going on there and it was affecting so many different parts of your body. And so we call those the branches. And those can get missed easily when people are kind of rushed through certain types of providers' offices where, oh no, for this, we're going to send you have like alternating diarrhea and constipation, you're going to go to your gastroenterologist. And you're having headaches, you're going to go to your neurologist. Well, in Chinese medicine, those are being caused by the same thing, right? And so it's my job to find what that root is. And sometimes that takes 45 minutes. And so we
Right.
explain to the patient in Chinese medicine terms what's happening and give them some lifestyle suggestions and then let them rest with the needles in.
Where was I going to go with that? So there's a lot in there. Without Amanda talking to me about it, I don't know that I would know that acupuncture was local and here.
Yeah.
I would get there, right? Logic would tell you that it's here. But I wouldn't even know, why would I call you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know, what am I supposed to have wrong with myself before I would call you?
It's a good question.
Yeah. So how do people get to you?
The vast majority are word of mouth. So I'm actually having my website redone right here. She's got it pulled up. This is the beauty that I put together myself many years ago. And somebody named Chelsea Trosper is putting together a new website for me. But I've put it off for so long because most of my business is not coming from my website. It's
Right.
coming from word of mouth. And that used to be just patient to patient. Somebody would come in for some reason, it would help them, and they'd tell their friends and their family and so on and so forth. And so one of my favorite things about my job is like how many families I end up treating, right? I like get to know whole families. So we start with one and then it's another and then it's another. And it's cool. It's
Yeah.
neat. And I have pediatric patients now. They're going off to college and I was treating them, when they were in elementary school, and it's crazy.
It's just them getting older.
Is it right? And that's not me.
No.
I don't even know where I was going. I got so excited about the people coming in. But now we see more referrals from other providers. So we're getting them from different types of doctors, neurologists, rheumatologists. We are one of the biggest local providers for the VA. So we treat a lot of veterans. Things like that. So word of mouth is mainly where people are coming from. Some do find us by just Googling, treatments for pain, treatments for insomnia, treatments for digestive issues.
So, yeah, a good point, right? So Kentucky experienced over the last, 10, 15 years, this opioid problem that we've had, and it still exists and it's still here.
Yeah.
And that came from treatment of pain, right?
Exactly.
Just from big pharma.
Yeah.
And so do you find that people are looking for, I don't want to say different solutions. That's not the right thing, but people are still trying to find ways away from pain. So have you found a shift in thoughts or dynamics of society that they're looking for your services as opposed to OxyContin or something?
Absolutely. It used to be that people would come in and we would see them, and they were taking all these medicines as well. And, at a certain point they stop working. That's, how people end up on other things and with addiction and things sometimes. And so they would be looking for something else. And now it's actually much more frequent for us to see people who, like, I stopped him. I'm off my pain medication. I didn't like the way that it was making me feel, or I don't want to go on pain medication, so I need something else. So that's been a huge shift. And when people are taking high levels of opioids or some other medications like gabapentin and Neurontin, it actually, in my personal experience, I haven't researched this, but anecdotally, I feel like it dulls the effects of acupuncture. Their results are not the same. It takes us longer to achieve the same results, and we might not even get with certain treatments. I'm going to expect a 50% decrease in pain within 2 treatments, say, okay, for certain types of back pain. I'm not going to see that in somebody that's on a high level of opioids. And so not only am I seeing that shift from the patient perspective that they're looking away from those things, we're getting better results because of it. So, I'm sure there's research that's been done, but I've thought about that. I'm like, I should do some research on that because clearly the opioid receptors are involved in whatever, the mechanism of acupuncture is.
Yeah. In all your spare time, you're going to
yeah, exactly.
lead that research project.
Yep. In 20 years, look for it.
Yeah, that's right. Your white paper will be really good.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to hear that you're seeing a societal shift from people looking. I think a few years ago, the accepted practice was go to your family doctor and he's going to give you some type of opiate or whatever, and that's how you treat it.
Yeah.
I guess I hadn't really paid attention to whether or not there has actually been a shift.
There has, yeah.
And that's great to hear.
It is. They're prescribed much less frequently. people are being sent to pain clinics to get those kinds of things. They're not just being handed out anymore. And they're wanting them to exhaust other options first. So they're the doctors are sending them for acupuncture first.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
I mean, that's worth just mentioning a time or two again, that's just huge.
It's very, very big. And that's just been in, the 11, 12 years I've been practicing here that I've seen that happen. So it's been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And I still think, the drugs are the problem, or a big problem for us, right? We're still, pain clinics are still handing those things out.
Yeah.
But just the general idea that other providers are making referrals to your practice because of that, that's huge.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's amazing, for multiple reasons.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now I'm forgetting where I was going to go with it. All right. So, no, I got you on that. I was just trying to think of the patient point of view. I mean, so when I look at your website, you've got 6 or 7 different things that you're treating, right?
Yeah.
So without a referral, I guess I would just Google search and I see all these things that you do. Go to where, I guess service. Well, we're there. Somewhere you have a list of 6 or 7 different things. If you scroll up,
why acupuncture, click. Yep, right there.
Yeah, there we go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my first blush here is that's a big path of stuff to fix.
Yeah. That's again, that goes back to one of the reasons that it's been, I think, kind of was eschewed. How can one thing treat so many different things? But we are helping the body to restore homeostasis. It's an adaptive form of medicine. I can put a point in somebody who has low blood pressure and it can raise their blood pressure, and I can use the same point to decrease blood pressure in somebody that has high blood pressure. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's just that's the beauty of what acupuncture can do for the body, because it's not putting and we're putting a needle in, right? So there's something external, but we're not putting in any form of medicine or anything. It is using the body's own networking system to affect change. And so that's one of the reasons that it can affect so many different things, because we're just kind of, one explanation I've seen that I've liked is the needles are just flagpoles, letting your body know, hey, there's an imbalance here, so your body can go in and fix it. And that's why we have so many different things that we can help.
And the dumb question here is just because of your training and education, where those pieces are. So you would interview in your intake with the patient.
Yeah.
And let's say for me, for example, I've had some back pain here lately.
Okay. Stress
is through the roof, being an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah.
Which creates anxiety and all these different things. And that's, if I had a main complaint to you, it'd just be, I'm not really sure how to manage the stress.
Okay.
You can tell me everything you want to tell me, but at the end of the day, you still have a business to run and payroll to make. And, we're a services industry. So if people don't choose to work with us, then, we go away. So, I've always said, if you ain't hustling, you ain't eating.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth to that, right? But it also creates a lot of stress.
Of course it does.
And so if I gave you that piece of information, then you'd say, well, all right, David, let's do it. And you'd know where to poke and jab me at.
Well, first I would look at your tongue.
Yes. Now we're getting somewhere. I knew the party would heat up.
So, one of the ways that we're going to pick our points is looking at your tongue.
Yes.
Which sounds crazy, but if you think about it, it's one of the only muscles that we can see on the outside of the body. So looking at it can give us a lot of information about what's happening internally. So I'm going to look at the shape, the color, the coat. I'll look underneath it and see.
Now I'm closing my mouth behind the mic.
I know he's hiding. Yeah. Judgment-free zone.
Yeah. Whew.
But that helps me to see maybe what particular imbalances are affecting the way that you're feeling. So we might have, like you said, anxiety, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't have anxiety is a diagnosis, but I don't have one way that I treat that. You could have 3-4 different imbalances that might need correcting, and looking at your tongue and checking your pulse and asking you some other seemingly unrelated questions. So our intakes can be pretty extensive. We're going to ask about, even if you're coming in for anxiety, I'm going to talk to you about your poop.
Yeah.
And that's going to help me figure out what's going on. And so taking all of that, then yes, I can pick what points I think are going to help.
Man, we would have great conversations.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Good times.
This sounds exciting. Where else can I talk about all those things?
No, it's a party every day. It's one of the most fun things about what I do, but it's funny too because you get to wear many different hats in my role. You know, so like I said earlier, I might be treating one of the pediatricians that I treat, who I'm going to be talking very, using very certain terminology and things like that, because that's how we relate. Not because I'm trying to be any certain way, right? But that's how they understand what I'm doing. And so we talk about it like that. And I might pop across the hall, and take the needles out of somebody who's like, yeah, I had an energy attack on my leg yesterday. They feel like a force entered, and you never know what you're going to get there. And it's just, it keeps me on my toes, and I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the best too. It's just, you got to communicate with people at their level, of course, exactly. or their way of communicating. But yeah, for me, I just like to put it as simple as I can. And, there's beauty in ignorance sometimes. And
exactly. And meet people where they're at.
Yeah, that's right. Just be where you're at with it.
Yeah.
So, I find this really interesting. And Amanda's been trying to get me to call you for a long time, and I'm sure I probably will, but I have such a huge fear of medications.
Okay.
I don't know that I have any I don't have any. Well, Diet Coke would be my addiction. Mm-hmm. I can certainly say that's probably true.
Yeah.
But I'm scared to death of the big medications. And, I've had a few prescribed to me over time as you have surgeries and different stuff. And I almost refuse to take them. And my wife's like, why? And I was like, I don't know why. I just think my previous career, my previous life has showed me, this really ugly side of what some of these medications can do. Mm-hmm. That has put me into a place where I don't really want to take them at all. I'm just scared of them.
Yeah.
And so as we dig in and find out about services like this, medicine like this, then it becomes really interesting to me.
Yeah. And that's, I hope that with time, I've already seen it happen, that more people realize, not even just acupuncture, but that there are so many options out there that used to be kind of on the fringe. And they're really being more accepted as a whole. And I think that makes people a little bit more comfortable to try them. Mm-hmm. And they're things that, we know work. It's like anything. I tell everybody that comes into my office the same thing, because my percentages haven't changed. At some point they will, and I will change this. But we help about 90% of people that come in. 10% don't get anything. I don't know if that's because acupuncture isn't right for them, or I'm not the right acupuncturist for them. Right. But it helps most people that come in. Even if I've had people who I didn't even help what they were coming in for. I can think of one woman who she had pain that never responded to the acupuncture, but she felt so good in so many other areas of her life after treatment. I haven't seen her in probably 8 years, and she's still sending people to me, and it did nothing for what she came in for. But that's the beauty of something that can affect so many different body systems, right? Is that, okay, she's better able to manage her pain because all of these other things just feel better. Yeah.
So would you lump yourself into maintenance or preventative? Where would you find yourself
We
at?
fit all of it. Yeah. So most people that come in, barring, again, it varies, but barring the person that comes in because they have restriction in their shoulder and they need 2 treatments and they're out. Or like I just saw somebody who was in town, I think he was a football coach, and he had thrown out his back. 2 treatments, he's good. He's not going to come back and see me. There's that, right? Most people that are coming to see me, they might start with something like that. They come in because they have elbow pain, or they come in because they have headaches, or they come in because they have really bad period cramps. And then as we start to kind of peel back the layers and look at what that root is that allowed all that to happen, because by the time you have symptoms, barring throwing your back out, barring being in a car accident or something really traumatic happening, you've had something going on a long time. Your body is amazing at adapting, and it will handle it, and it will handle it, and it will handle it. And it's kind of like under the surface. And then when it breaks through, all of a sudden, people want to, we want to get them to back where it's under the surface. But my job then is to keep digging and being like, okay, well, let's actually get this back down far enough that it's not going to pop back over the surface anymore. And so that's where maintenance comes in. And we're a lot of times able to get people, it might be once a month. It might be once I have many people that just come in seasonally. They come in once every 3 months. Nothing's really wrong, but they feel like it helps keep them from getting sick. They feel like it helps keep anything that they used to have from coming back. And so, yeah, both preventative and maintenance are a part of our treatment plans.
So as I'm listening, and of course I'm looking at your website thinking, my first thought is, I don't know when to come to you.
Yeah. Well, there's not necessarily a wrong time depending on what you're coming for.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time that I will tell somebody not to come is if it is going to add too much stress to their life. So I'll have people that are coming in for stress, and they are like coming in and they're like, I have 40 minutes and I got to get out. I got to go do something else. And then, and it's like that every single week. I'm like, let's take a break. Because the benefits that you should be getting, it's about the needles, but it's also about changing, at least the way that I practice, changing our mindset, changing habits, really looking at things through a different lens than the lens that led us to feel the way that we are.
Mm-hmm.
That I'll say, wait until you have just a little bit more time or a little bit more space to actually soak all of this in. And you're ready to make that change. And that does one of two things. It either kind of kicks them in the ass and they're like, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Here, I'll do this. I'm here. Or I don't see him again for 6 months until we're ready. Right? That's about the only time that I would say don't come in, is if we're trying to treat you for stress and it is literally adding stress to come to my appointment. It's going to take us so long to get your cortisol levels in your body calm on that table that I don't know how much we've done for you. But that's rare. Most people are, by the time they seek out acupuncture, they're ready. And that's the first step. I think before I even do anything, because all I'm doing is putting needles in. I have the training of where to put the needles, but I'm just putting needles in. Like your body, you are showing up and you are saying, yeah, I want something different. And there is power in treatment even in that. And so when you start opening that door, things can start to kind of click very, very quickly.
So I hear you, and I'm with you. So whoever's going to listen to the show, right? The concept is that we want them to say, well, maybe I need to come in, right? Maybe I need to do this.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's easy to say, I have a pain, therefore I will seek a treatment.
Yes.
Or whatever. I have a thing, so therefore I'll seek an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would have landed on acupuncture before tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out what's my thing in order to come see you, but I'm hearing from you, you don't have to have a thing.
We look, you look at my intake form, you'll find a thing. You'll check something on there, I promise. But yeah, and we do get those people that just come in to try it out and kind of see. And that's another shift that I've seen. I think, I'm sure part of it is I'm a better acupuncturist and conversationalist than I was when I started this 12 years ago, right?
Sure.
I'm sure that's part of it. But I also think culturally and socially, people are more open and the people are looking for change. I think we're all kind of waking up and like, hey, this whole thing we've all had going on here, I don't want to call it a delusion per se, but it kind of like this whole thing we've all agreed to just do is maybe not working for me like it used to.
Right.
And so they're seeking out things, and we have ones that come in, and it used to be they would come in and try it out, and I might not see them again. And now even the people that just come in and try it out, we're figuring out what's going on and maybe where there's an imbalance present. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to start coming monthly because I can't put my finger on it, but I feel better when I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that fits into what we're trying to say with this. There's alternative stuff out there. And again, I don't want to use certain phrasing and keep using it, but I don't really know what to say there. So when I say alternative, I mean, I don't necessarily want to go to the doctor and tell a doctor something.
Yeah.
Then I also have some fears over, I don't want to go tell the doctor I have whatever. I'm making this up for our story, but let's say stress, or I'm having these feelings, because I feel like traditional medicine, I should say, or Western medicine, I guess I should trip to the doctor's office, is they're so quick to label and then prescribe or treat something based off the label.
Right.
And the labels, I feel, are damn near worthless.
I agree.
Okay.
They can be pretty arbitrary.
Very arbitrary, it feels like. And sometimes they're right.
Yeah.
We're not turning our back on medicine at all.
Not at
We're just
all.
saying, there's got to be a better way.
Well, right. And I think it's just that, okay, if you have X, then Y, here are your options. And it's like this, you have to take one of these things. This is what we're going to do. And I think that's where people get stuck. You know, it's that the label seems to box in the treatment options that are presented to them. And that can just feel suffocating.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk a little bit about the concept of energy with the body. Mm-hmm. So to me, that seems, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems a little like, I don't know really what that is.
Okay, yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
There's a lot of different ways we can look at it. If you want to look at it like physiologically, we can measure energy in the body, right? We're doing that when we do our nerve conduction studies. We are looking at nerve impulses. We are looking at the electricity that's running through your body. The idea of qi is a vital force that flows, keeps us alive, and keeps us feeling well. So that's been described as potentially being something as simple as oxygen, nerve impulses, the electricity that surrounds us. I think because the whole idea of like energy workers, and again, we can't measure that per se. It sounds kind of woo-woo to people. Mm-hmm. But I think just about everybody has walked into a room. And there might be, you know, say there's two people, they're not facing you. You walk in that room and you know what kind of conversation they were just having. I think anybody, even if you can imagine that, right? Mm-hmm. How do you know that? That's energy.
Yeah.
It's there. It's palpable. We can see things. You didn't hear it. You didn't see their faces, but you know where you walk into a location and you're like, you have a really good feeling, you have a really bad feeling, right? Mm-hmm. That is all energy, intuition, all of that. That is just energy. That is flowing through our bodies at all times. Is it electricity? Maybe. Is it something else that we haven't measured yet? Maybe. The fascial system, we used to think that fascia was just something that surgeons just cut it up to get to where they needed to go. And now we're seeing that it actually has its own I'm not sure if it's electromagnetic or how it functions. I don't remember, but it has its own network of communication separate from the nervous system. So that's a newer discovery. And that's, there's a lot of hope there that that's actually going to be what explains what acupuncture does. But we're finding, I say that to say we're finding new things all the time about the body that we didn't know existed 15 years ago.
That's right.
So energy can sound like this kind of funny thing, but at the same time, when you break it down, you know if somebody's in a bad mood or a good mood without looking at them.
Yeah.
What is that if it's not energy?
Yeah.
You know?
So in my teaching and in my travels, I've always talked about body language.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. The study of body language, you can see and sense a lot by that. So it's kind of the same thing.
Very much so.
So through acupuncture, you're able to manipulate energy?
Well, essentially, we can help the body, to change the way that it's flowing, and typically to open it up, because most of the issues that I tend to see at my clinic are due to blockages. In traditional Chinese medicine, there's a lot of talk about deficiencies and excess and things like that, and all kinds of different diagnoses. But what I tend to see in my clinic is stagnation, a lot of stagnation, people just feeling stuck in certain areas of the body, certain areas of their life. And we are able to open up that flow.
How do they define being stuck? I mean, is that just like, I just feel stuck?
Yeah. And that's not always their words. Sometimes people come in and they're like, I just feel stuck but a lot of times that's more my way of describing to them what energetically is happening, what in the Chinese medicine paradigm is happening. Think about something like frozen shoulder. That's the epitome of something being stuck. It literally is not wanting to move, but we can have, that's all. If you put it on a continuum, we can have smaller areas of that happening in the body. Your digestive system is stuck. You can't inhale, your chest is tight, your lungs are stuck. And so we are wanting to open those things up and create movement. And movement, most people feel better when they move, right? Movement begets movement. So opening up that flow of energy, again, whether it's electrical impulses, whether it's oxygen, whether it's something else that is more intangible, it can do a lot for the body.
Do you find you have to educate people a lot on what you just educated me on?
Depends on the person.
Yeah.
Again, I walk a fine line where I just try to meet people where they're at. I have a lot of people who come in and they might start coming in for pain, And, 4 years down the road, it's like, it turns out I hate what I do, and I, don't know if I love my spouse anymore. And we get all kinds of things, and so we refer to counselors. But
let me put a point over here.
Yeah, well, no.
Here's the shut up point.
Yeah,
no, I'm just
I think even just getting a space to validate or realize these things about ourselves that maybe they might seem like taboo. Like we can't say, I have everything. I can't say that I don't feel happy with my life when, or I'll have women that have gone through IVF and they're like, they don't want to say they hate being pregnant. Or I have women who are, raising kids and their husband's working and they're like, I get to go on all these vacations and I have a wonderful life. I can't say that I'm miserably unhappy. And sometimes even just them voicing that or getting to the point where it's like you've loosened up enough in the body for them to say something like that. There's a profound shift that happens just there. I don't know where I started talking about all this. This is kind of like that's my favorite thing to treat is women who are kind of looking to rediscover themselves. But a lot of times they come in, they start off with like ankle pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess just through your questions and your intake and getting to know that person, then you unlock other things.
Right. Well, there's a root, right? I mean, even with
back to the root, yeah.
Exactly. There's something going on with most of us that we can look back, and sometimes it's blatantly obvious. When I treat my veterans, there's some things that they saw, they underwent. I treat a lot of cops. There's things that they've seen, and it's we know that, but sometimes it's not so obvious. Sometimes it's less subtle. That something has occurred. It's a self-belief. It's something somebody's been through, something they're holding on to, something they're dealing with on a daily basis that they've maybe normalized or they've kind of pushed down that starts to creep its way up. And I don't want to get into this and sound like we're trying to be therapists because we're not. We're not trained like that. Like I said, we refer to them. But when you are working with kind of unlocking things in the body and you're working with adults who most of us have started, compiling crap since childhood, there's something that happens where stuff starts kind of freeing up. And that's when that really kind of good feeling can start to happen. People start to actually feel okay. And I think a lot of us have forgotten what feeling okay is like.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder about that myself too, right? I don't know what's normal some days.
Yeah. Because
you're wrapped up in life and work and everything that goes on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the concept of energy still is interesting to me, right? I'm not sure where I land on the study of energy and the body. I believe you, and Amanda talks about it a lot, and I believe her, of course, and there's some others that have talked about it. And so I believe in it, but I'm not sure exactly where I'm at with it, but it's very fascinating to me.
Yeah.
To the point that it's worth trying.
Yeah.
Right, to see what's there.
Well, and the thing is too, to remember that's one aspect of what we do. Right. I'm going to have, I probably talk about the more energetic components with half of the people that I see.
Yeah.
Half of them, we're not talking that language. We're sticking to, anatomy and terms people are familiar with. And so we're going to talk about stress and anxiety as far as like cortisol and things like that and what your blood pressure is doing. And that is only something we talk about when it is needed and relevant and applies to the person that's there. Because again, you want to treat the person. I might have my own beliefs. I try not to impart them on the people that I treat. The medicine's going to work regardless of how we try to explain how it's working. It's going to have the same effects physiologically.
Yeah. Okay. Do you do Reiki also? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So that is a purely energetic healing method. There's, depending on the lineage that you're trained in, there's different ways of doing it where there might be touch, there might not be touch. It is about balancing the body's chakras or energetic centers. And the form that I do is more hands-on. And I might also work on like soft tissue adhesions that I find or something like that. But it's a way of redistributing energy in the body, opening up, again, flow. But the lens that we're looking at it through is not the traditional Chinese medicine lens. We're not looking at it through the same paradigm.
What do you mean by that?
So the chakras are not a Chinese medicine thing.
Okay.
The Chinese medicine has the organs and the meridian system, which are just the lines that our points are on, and our points are named after the organs that they affect. Versus Reiki is much more focused on, again, the chakra system.
Okay. So we've talked about that a time or two. Like, you should go do Reiki. I think I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of what my energy bubbles or colors or whatever else are going to come back. I'm afraid the person would look at me like, get off the table.
Oh, so anybody that is going into working with energy, I shouldn't say anybody. I shouldn't generalize, but most people they're not going to be judging anybody. You just want everybody to feel better. I promise.
I feel like I got this big dam of stuff, like at a big lake or something, this big dam of some type of energy.
Well, and that's
they'd see over the dam like, oh boy.
Well, that's, and that in and of itself, right now I can start to be like, oh, this is what I would do to you. All right, you just told me what you need. But with Reiki, it's the same as acupuncture, where we can get, as down the wormhole as we want to it. So I'll have people that come in and we're going to talk about everything that I found. And then there's going to be people who are just interested in how they feel afterwards. They don't necessarily want to talk about what I found or what I saw or what I did, right? They're coming in to get the treatment. They get off the table and they go on about their day. And so that's also, again, you can tailor it to the person. And Reiki's practiced in a lot in hospitals and things too, cancer treatment centers. And that, I'm sure, I haven't talked to anybody that does it there, but I'm sure they have to walk a fine line there too between how much they discuss, depending on, the person or where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. I keep saying I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One day I'll actually get there.
I haven't sold them yet.
Yeah, you have. I think I'm good to try some of it. So the acupuncture part, I'm pretty interested in.
Yeah.
The Reiki, I am too.
Yeah.
I just don't know a lot about it. So I'm naturally fearful, I guess, or curious, but want to be informed and research before I
of course
do something,
as one should. And just because it's a treatment that's out there, I'll tell people I'm a big believer in like your hell yes and your hell no. Do you know your hell yes? The feeling you have?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll try to, people that are maybe struggling with decisions or something, will work on figuring out their hell yes. So for me, if I think about like, do I want to go hug my kids? There's a feeling inside of me that is always, to me, it's different for everybody. It feels like there's a river that starts running through my midline. Like I feel like, oh my gosh, yes. And then I think about like, do I want to not see my kids for 2 months? And it makes me like, my shoulder blades want to like contract and go back towards each other. Like it feels like something inside of me is breaking. That is my hell yes and hell no. And so I can fall back on that. If I ever feel really, really stuck, I'll just sit quietly and look at which direction is my chest kind of moving. And I can get my answer about things that way. And it's not that obvious for some people, but I use it as an example of like, if you're kind of like, well, I feel like I could try this thing and it's there and it might help me and people are telling me it would. Look, if you don't have a hell yes about it, don't pressure yourself to go do it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I hear that and I'm good with that. But at the same time, if you don't know that would give you a hell yes, then you have to trust your peers and your colleagues to say, it would work, dumbass, go do it. How many times can we tell you you're the right person to go do this? Hell no.
That's fair. That's fair.
So I'll get there. I'll get there eventually with it. Okay. So what else are you doing at your shop?
Well, we do the acupuncture, the manual therapy, Reiki, and we just put in an infrared sauna and salt booth, which just opened like 2 weeks ago, and I'm already in love with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the infrared sauna is really good for detox, pain, sleep, those kinds of things. And then the salt, if you've never done a salt cave before, essentially it's salt that is ground down really, really into really, really fine particles and it's inhaled. And that is really great at helping any kind of sinus issue, breathing issue. It boosts the immune system. And we have it all in a nice little booth. So you can do a combination. You can come in, you can just get the salt. You can come in, you can do the sauna with the salt, or you can just do the sauna.
Is that what we saw at the other place we were looking at, like the salt bath or whatever? What's that called? Salt room. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting too. I don't know anything about that either. So
yeah, it's I wanted one personally. So I've been I've gone to the salt caves here in Lexington for some time. When I've referred a lot of patients, especially pediatric patients. I'll have their moms if they come in and, they feel like their kid's getting sick, or I see a lot of kids for like things like asthma and things. And I have to tell them to ask the pediatrician, but, then take them to the salt caves. And it just the feedback is just amazing that it works so well. And so I was thinking, like, I wonder if I could do something like that. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that they made them as a combination where you could get the sauna with the salt. And it turns out you can. And so I jumped on that and brought it in. Yeah. People have loved it so far.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what else do you have?
Well, we actually just moved in to the back of the office. She's completely separate from me, but she's renting a space back there. She's a nurse that does like custom hydration, infusions, things like that. Mm-hmm. They do teeth whitening. I think they do the weight loss programs. Yeah, so we've got that going now.
Yeah,
too.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, it's been busy there recently.
Which is a good thing. Here in a second, I'm going to move into some business stuff. I think, so figure out what's working for you and what's, those type of things. Mm-hmm. Let's see. What else do we need to know about? Let's talk about the process of acupuncture.
Okay.
Because we've gone through an intake process and we've gone through learning the patient, you determining the course of action for the patient, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about what the actual work looks like for myself and then for whomever is listening to this. So what does acupuncture look like?
So as far as during the treatment or like the treatment plan?
Let's say during the treatment.
During the treatment? Mm-hmm. You're going to be laying on a table and might be face down, might be on your side, might be face up, depending on where we're needling. And then I'm going to start putting the needles in. Typically, it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 20 needles. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but that's a pretty good average. When I go to put them in, some of them you'll feel like a really quick prick. It's not like getting a shot. And most of them you don't really feel much of anything. And if anything is uncomfortable, you always tell me. I kind of harp on this the first couple treatments with people because people will come in and they'll be like, oh, I don't care if it hurts. I'm here. I want to feel better if it works. But again, we are trying to relax the body. Most of our effect comes from the nervous system relaxing enough that we can affect change. We can kind of bypass all these layers that we all carry around, right? The baggage, the armor we have on. And pain's just going to make you tense up and the body's not going to listen to what I'm telling it to do. But for the most part, it's pretty comfortable. I probably, say I treat, 20 people a day and I have to adjust needles on like 3 of them. I mean, most of the time they go in very smoothly and there's no issues. And then you lay on the table with, we usually table warmer. We might have heat on your feet or on the affected area. We use infrared lamps. We have music playing, and you have a buzzer. So while you're on the table, I leave the room so that you can relax and the needles can kind of do their work. They take 20 to 30 minutes depending on the points that we have in. And you press the buzzer if you need anything when you come in.
Why does it take so long?
Well, there's different theories on that. And this is one of those things that we're still not positive about.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So we know there's been research done testing different times, and the best results tend to come in that window. The best theory that we have right now is that say that we are affecting change somewhere in the blood. Okay. Or we're talking about oxygen. If we're working on oxygenating tissue, then it takes 1 drop of blood about 28 minutes to circulate through every single blood vessel in the body. And so that's right in that 20 to 30 minute window.
Right.
Again, is that the actual reason? We don't really know.
Right.
But
that's logical and makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of that's that magic number that we aim for.
That's right. Okay. So the needles themselves, they're single-use needles?
Single use, yep. Sterile. A lot of times we'll open up multi-packs. So if you go to an acupuncturist and you see them open up a pack of 10 needles, even if we only use 4 of those on you, those other 6 are getting put in the red bin and are never seen again.
Yeah.
Those are not reused. Yeah. Single-use needles. And, after they're taken out, occasionally we get like some bruising, but even that is very rare because the needles are solid and they're very, very fine. And one of the biggest fears people have is about moving around. They're, like, do I have to lay like a statue? But the needles are made to accommodate some movement. We don't expect you to not move at all. we prefer that you don't. I had somebody last week try to get up and go to the bathroom with them, and we prefer you don't do that. But otherwise, a little bit of movement's okay.
Yeah, no pause button.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, what else do I need to know about acupuncture?
So I tell everybody, give me 4 treatments before we decide if it's working. So again, remembering that help about 90% of people that come in. Of those, only half notice a change in their chief complaint after 1 treatment. Sometimes it takes a few. And if they do notice something, it's usually temporary, right? We're not going to have any lasting effect after 1 treatment. Generally, there are some things like acute low back pain we can knock out. But as a whole, we'll say it takes a few treatments to get lasting change. The other 50% that are going to notice something, they're going to notice something after visits 3 or 4. Don't ask me why it's not visit 2. I have no idea. Tends to be one of those 2. And so after 4 treatments, we can have a pretty good idea of, is acupuncture going to help you? Is this going to make, a difference? And we might only have, 50% reduction in pain. But most people are pretty happy to have 50% reduction in pain in 4 treatments. So I'm not saying that, we've resolved the issue, but we're going to know like, oh, hey, yeah, this is definitely a good therapy for you.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still trying to think what my reason for coming to see you is. I think I have 3 or 4 reasons at this point. But...
Yeah, I've got a list going in my head for you.
Well, if you knew me, then you would know that's perfect, David. This is why you're coming. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. As you should, right? Good deal.
That's what I do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me about building your business here. And obviously, I don't want any particular details of it, but you're an entrepreneur as well, and you're a small business as well. So what's been successful for you? What's been a working strategy for you? You said word of mouth is where you're getting most of your business from, at least now. Yeah.
Authenticity. Just treating people like people. And there's good and bad in that. We have, I always try to make people, I don't want people to feel like they're coming to their provider's office. Sometimes it's inevitable, and sometimes people are never gonna, drop that, and that's okay if that's what works for them. But I want them to know that they can. We want to know them. We want them to feel comfortable with where they're coming. I might know where the needles are, where they need to go, but everybody that comes in teaches me something too, and so I like everybody to kind of be on an even playing field. And I think. The other side of that I think some businesses are sometimes afraid to do, and I'm just going to be super honest that we do it, is we'll call you out if you're not nice. But we, do it in an authentic way, and it's helped us to cultivate an atmosphere there where, I've told more than one person, like, don't waste my time. Why are you here? If you're here and you're grumpy and you're angry, you don't have to be here. It's okay. Yeah. It's fine. Or people that get mad because they're violating the cancellation policy, and we're just super honest. Like this is why we have this. It can't work that way. And so I bring that up only because I think it's 2 sides of the same coin. And so when we talk about like treating people kindly and authentically, it's not just about the making everybody feel comfortable. It's also being like, hey, it's a 2-way street. But what that does in this kind of funny way I found is it empowers the person. Like, oh yeah, like I have an effect on the world too. What I am saying matters. And it just brings a self-realization that is honestly part of the treatment. Right? Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing. I taught a practice management course, and I was like, just be nice to people and be authentic, and people like that.
It's amazing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. To treat people like you would want to be treated if you were there.
It sounds so simple, but
it sounds so simple. I do a lot of teaching on that myself to say, people want to feel like people. Mm-hmm. They don't want to feel secondary or whatever else, and I guess I've made a life of that, of trying to treat people like I would want to be treated, or my mom would want to be treated, or my baby would want to be treated.
Exactly.
And it sounds so simple, but yet it seems almost like a lost art.
It is.
To treat people that way.
Yeah.
our clients that we have now are, without getting into our work, but some of them are pretty difficult people, and some of them are some of the best people just in difficult times.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll say enough here to say it's criminal investigations. And I've always said, the worst person in our society has constitutional rights. And, because people say, how can you go from what you previously did to now doing criminal defense work? And I say, it's fascinating, actually. It's really interesting. And, well, how can you do it? And I was like, well, do you believe in the Constitution and those things? And everybody will say, oh, yeah, I do. Well, what if it's this person? Oh, screw them.
Yep.
Well, but wait a minute. You just said this.
Equally.
Yeah, right. So without squirreling too much into my world, because I don't want the conversation to go away from yours, of course. But at the end of the day, you still treat people the way that you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
And as simple as that is, it seems like a lost art. Yeah. But it's so freaking effective.
It is. And I don't know if you've seen this, but Brandy's my office manager, and we talk a lot about some of the patients that we see now who just put a smile on your face and that feel like family. We're checking on them if something's going on, if they have surgery, or they're coming in and, they want to be treated up front so that they can chat with Brandy while they're there, but some of them started out as just the angriest. They were just angry. They were just mad. And it was somebody that, they couldn't make them happy. And treating them like a person. And then the acupuncture too. Acupuncture is amazing at helping people work through anger. So, it's not just, the way that you treat them, but just treating them like a person and also calling them out when they're being mean. I don't know. I just think it does something.
Yeah. I think that's a bigger picture of society. Society is in this weird place where I don't think it knows how to position itself or define itself. And maybe that's always been that way. Maybe I'm just getting to a point where I'm seeing it, but I don't think society really knows what to do with itself.
It's lost. I agree.
Yeah, it seems lost. And so to go to a place where I would imagine that barriers are up and, attitudes and personalities are up, but how refreshing it is to get to a place where people will talk to you like you're somebody and treat you like somebody. And I've always said, people want to be held accountable.
Exactly. They do.
Yeah, they do. Even the worst employee or person or whatever, the worst one is screaming to be held accountable for it. And I think people connect and relate to that.
I think there's so much, to that point that I find it interesting, childhood psychology and the way that we raise our kids. And yet we somehow decide that when we're adults, it doesn't apply anymore. Like children want structure and they want the accountability. They thrive when they are given, structure and rules. And, or, I'll talk with people as kids, if your kid does baseball for 4 years and then your 10-year-old comes to you and says, I hate baseball. I can't do it anymore. It's not making me happy. Are you going to be like, well, that's what you have to do the rest of your life. Sorry, tough. Like you're in it now, but yet as adults, we are uncomfortable holding people accountable and we'll be like, you know what? I actually hate this career path, but it's what I did. I got to do it. I got to see this through. We apply these rules to ourselves as adults that it's just like, we're still human, child, adult. We're still the same.
Yeah. Here we're a lot childlike.
Yeah. Fair. I mean, I like that.
Yeah. It keeps it fresh and interesting, right? Yeah. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. What else would be good to know from you on the business side of things? So, do you market a lot?
No.
You hadn't had to because of word of mouth.
Yeah. Word of mouth's really where most of it comes from.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Same for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We spent a little bit of time of trying to figure out how the hell do people know you exist. And then suddenly you have a lot.
Yeah.
And we've recently gone through a portion where our lot became few. And we're once again trying to ask ourselves, well, how the hell do people even know we exist?
Yeah.
And so we're constantly trying to answer that. Do you experience the same thing?
There's definitely ups and downs. I think that's one of the hardest parts to weather as an entrepreneur, right? It's because it can go from booming to, really falling off overnight. And yeah, it's, so I think I've struggled with the same question whenever I've tried to ask it of, well, wait, what was making these people come in the first place, right? What's that sauce that I can I can work through? And I know that you technically, like from talking to coaches or my own training as a coach, you're supposed to be able to nail that down, right? Replicate it, and I haven't yet.
Yeah. Well, everybody that I've spoken to has said the same thing. If you ever figure that out, you'll be a quadrillionaire.
Exactly.
Everybody's wanting to know what that answer is. Which gives me solace to say, well, nobody knows what the answer is.
Exactly. I think there's things that are unpredictable.
Yeah. Nor is there one path.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's multiple paths to success, and success varies depending on how you want to define it, right?
Absolutely. And I'm also, I believe, getting a little bit more into the esoteric side of things, but like I've never had a really tough season and come out of it and been like, I have no idea why I went through that. It's always in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that's why the business was slower, or, oh, that's why that happened, or something like that. And so I also think that there's greater forces at work sometimes that do things for us.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot here, that, whatever force you want to call it and however you want to label it, but we always call it the universe, always seems to, like the markets will correct themselves in due time, right?
Exactly.
And the universe always seems to correct itself. And we're kind of going through that now to say, hey, we had some tough moments and some of the same things, right? Why, why do we experience that? And I don't have an answer for it, nor do I know how to solve it.
Yeah.
But suddenly, after experiencing some tough stuff, suddenly the universe is correcting some things again. And I thought, okay. And in my previous life, I would spend a lot of time trying to figure out what did I miss and what should I be seeing and how I should recognize those signs and things. And now I'm just like, I don't think you're supposed to see all those things. I think you're supposed to experience it and become better because of it. But
exactly.
That's a challenge for me.
It's a growth opportunity, but growth is always painful.
Yeah.
The yin yang is a big thing in Chinese medicine, and when you really look at it, it's the duality of everything. And 50% of your time here on Earth is going to feel light and easy, and 50% of it's going to feel harder.
Yeah.
That's the way that it is, And I think that essential idea that we're all searching for, even if we don't realize we're searching for, is trying to figure out how to let go of caring so much about that, or labeling it, or holding on to this is how things should be and shouldn't be, and this is bad and this is good. And that's really the key to life, I think. Yeah.
Is that part of your coaching?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It kind of sounded like it.
It is, but it's all comes out of like my own personal beliefs. And that's how I've not by any means I've not had a super traumatic life, but I sometimes when I meet with people and they find out about my past, they're always like, oh, everything that I believe came out of necessity and finding that was how I was able to get through things. And I've seen it do the same for others.
Well, and I think that's a very common thread, right? That a lot of us don't want to spend time, which gets back to your empathy and your ability to connect to each person on their personal level.
Yeah.
You're really answering that for each person, right? And as a whole, it feels like no one seems to care. No one gives a shit about how I feel or why I'm here or how I got here. But if we spend just a few minutes of time, it just seems to build a better road or bridge for us to get where we need to go.
Absolutely.
In our work, we do the same, or at least I do the same. There's some good people that are caught up in some bad situations. And once you get into the criminal justice system, it seems like a real uphill battle.
Yeah.
And so it's not for me to judge or whatever. It's for me to say, okay, let's talk about how you got here.
Absolutely.
And now let's figure out the right way out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. All right. What else you got? What haven't we covered? We've
talked about acupuncture. We've talked about energy. We've talked about, the universe. And
yeah, we've covered a lot.
We have.
But I want to make sure that we're covering everything we need to cover about your business and why people need to come to you and to see you. And so I may not know what those reasons are.
Of course. Yeah. Well, the main things that we see, we can help multiple different kinds of pain. We can do dry needling. I'm trained in orthopedic acupuncture as well. And so that's really helpful for athletes or people that lift weights, and even people that don't, but we tend to see it more for that because we might have some muscle dysfunction or something that's inhibiting the body to, mechanics properly, and that can create pain. And then, systemic issues too, anything with inflammation, digestion, insomnia, stress, anxiety, asthma, allergies. Allergies is a big one here in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different things that we can affect. But basically what I'll tell people is if you feel like something is not quite right in your body, acupuncture is a pretty good thing to try. Even if you don't quite have a good explanation for what it is, you don't have a label for it, because of the way that it works, because of the way we look at the body and the holistic aspect of it, I think it's worth trying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good sales pitch.
Yeah. That was on the spot.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Well, it sounds like it is. It sounds like, just listening over the last couple hours here, it sounds like it's, I don't want to call it a one-stop shop, but mm-hmm. it kind of sounds that way.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that is just when you help to relax the body and you decrease inflammation and you improve blood flow and you loosen up muscles and you decrease pain and you improve sleep, all those other things start to get better, right? Like everything's interconnected. And so if one area starts to heal, a lot of times you have a domino effect. And so I think that's another reason that acupuncture can seem so far reaching is because, heck, if we just decreased inflammation and did nothing else, most people would feel better.
Sure.
And we know that acupuncture decreases inflammation. So, if nothing else, we can work on that for people. And yeah, like I said, it doesn't work for everybody. I never want to make promises that I can't keep, but I was my own biggest skeptic for a long time. And I wanted to be like, I need to learn more. I need to do more. And it's just hit me in the last couple of years. Like, dude, it works. Stop fighting it. This is, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why, or maybe it is, right? Mm-hmm. Why is it not more mainstream? Why is this not the things you said it could help, right? Uh-huh. That's such a broad path.
Yeah.
It almost seems counterintuitive to the way that we're wired.
Yeah.
With back to the propaganda, right? Uh-huh. It seems counterintuitive to say, if it helps all these things, well, this is where I should be going in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not so mainstream here in Kentucky. That is uniquely a location thing. So in a lot of, and in many other parts of the world, it is your first stop. And especially like along the coast and some other states where, acupuncture is much more prevalent. It's integrated in a lot of the hospitals, and it's being used in lieu of anesthesia for surgery. There's all kinds of things that are being done that here in Kentucky, and I'm sure some other locations, that we're just a little bit behind that curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like we're behind. We're always like 49th or something, right?
Yeah.
We're never 50th.
I love Kentucky, but yeah, we're on the back end of that.
So when I was doing my little bit of research, mm-hmm. right, I told you I don't try to become too knowledgeable on any topic that's going to be on the show, because I think as we're talking authenticity, I just think that's helpful for me, right, to ask some questions that I think that people would want to know. But mm-hmm. I found a couple of ironies when I was doing my research, right? I found obviously the Wikipedia entries, which were the stereotypical Wikipedia. To me, the bias was really hard against acupuncture mm-hmm. and basically calling it junk science and all these different things.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I didn't expect that answer, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because sometimes Wikipedia is pretty decent.
Yeah.
With the answer. It can be. Right? Yeah. You got to know when it is and when it isn't. But, right behind that was Mayo and Johns Hopkins and all these reputable places. And they were talking about the value of it and what it can treat. And I thought, well, that's an interesting irony that as we're going to talk about on the show, how do people know you exist, and why would they call, and why would they go there? And I'm seeing what you're putting on, your website. And sure enough, those ironies even come up on the Google searches.
Oh yeah.
And then of course UK has these things. So they're offering the services. So it just hit me as unusual to say, well, there's enough questions because it's not quite in the forefront of people's minds, but
right.
I mean, these are the leaders of the world that are selling the service. So it just seems like it should be more mainstream than it is.
And I agree with you. I have the unique perspective that I've been doing this for a decade. And so, then it was just the Wikipedia article, we didn't have the follow-ups after that. So that we're getting there. And I think one day that Wikipedia article will change. I know exactly what you're talking about. We're headed there. It feels slow, but at the same time, the change that it's been just in the time that I've been practicing is I can't overstate it. It's huge. There's we won't name names, but there's a surgeon here in town who I hadn't been practicing very long. I don't remember exactly how long, but we had a patient that was scheduled for surgery. Something happened with the surgeon. It got pushed back, and she was in a lot of pain. And so my goal in treating her was just to decrease the pain. She had an issue in her cervical spine to get her through until surgery. And we eliminated the pain. And she went back in, and they actually ended up canceling the surgery. And her surgeon asked her, this is anecdotal, she told me this, but surgeon asked her what she did, and she said acupuncture. And he's like, oh, don't do that. That's dangerous. You don't know where they're putting those needles. And I thought,
Yeah.
But I will have you know that being me, I looked that surgeon up, and I kept that name in the file cabinet of my brain.
Yeah.
And about 2 years ago, we got a referral from somebody who said, my surgeon wants me to try acupuncture before I get surgery. And it was the same name.
How about that?
Yeah. And so it's those little things, that aren't exactly right. It's changing.
Yeah.
It's shifting.
Yeah. Do you think it changed just because he has become more educated with it, or?
Probably. I mean, again, all the research that's come out just in the last 10 years and our understanding of it and what it's doing and being able to explain, before I couldn't say that, why, again, going back to the point within the leg that treats the eye, why does this point in your leg treat your eye? And the only explanation we had was the Chinese medicine explanation, which is, well, there's a energy movement in the gallbladder channel, and the gallbladder channel goes up the leg and into the eye. And that, even though we could see that it was actually having an effect, it didn't pass muster for some people. And I understand that, right? That culturally, that's just not the way we talk about the body.
Right.
Well, now we know. Now we see, like, oh, hey, no, we've studied it. That is happening. There is a shift happening in the brain when we needle that. I mean, that's kind of hard to argue with. And so I think as research improves and as acupuncture does become bigger here and more providers are seeing the effects that their own patients are having when they use it, it's getting harder and harder to turn a blind eye to.
Yeah. Which will eventually coming full circle for our conversation, which will eventually get to the insurances coming to Kentucky and pushing that in.
Exactly.
Are you fearful of that? Are you fearful of the insurances coming?
No, I would love for more people to be able to get acupuncture. The only, it's not fear, it's just some angst almost about having to explain to people probably why I won't end up taking it. People are paying good money for their insurance, and I hate to tell somebody, no, you can't take it here. And you don't have, 10 minutes to explain to them, well, your insurance company might tell me this, and I would love to treat you. And it's not just about the money, but if they're only going to pay me $30 to see you, you're not going to get the kind of treatment you're used to. And that's going to change my whole practice model. It's just, so I dread that conversation. At the same time, Medicare started covering acupuncture in 2020. For low back pain. And the problem is we were pushing for that for a long time. And the bill was going to do two things. It was supposed to add acupuncture as a covered service and then also make acupuncturists Medicare eligible providers, because we are not. and they tacked the coverage onto the end of another bill and left out making us providers. So this is an example of dealing with insurance. We have constantly companies that process Medicare like United and things calling our office, arguing with us that we need to see these patients. These patients were, patients have been referred for low back pain. We need to take them, and they don't understand we can't bill Medicare. It will be denied. And so somebody actually had to come out and publish this whole thing, and it's now on the Medicare website that, like, yes, it is covered. It cannot be done by a licensed acupuncturist. It has to be done by a Medicare eligible provider. So that has to be like an MD or, somebody like that. Or if I say I worked at UK, they are overseen by an MD, they could do it. I think, I don't quote me on that. I don't know if UK is billing Medicare, but like in a situation like that, if I was being overseen, but me on my own, I'm not eligible.
Isn't it wild? It
is. And the insurance companies we are now just directing them to this page on the Medicare website. Like, please stop. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. How crazy is that guidance, right? You got lifelong people dedicated to this.
Yeah.
That you're just nope, it has to be an MD.
So there's some angst over that kind of thing.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah.
I think, and you've forgotten more than I'll ever know for most every topic we've talked about tonight, right? But I think there's a shift that will eventually come where there's going to be a push, right, to get more patients exposed to services like yours.
Yeah.
Right. At the same time, you're going to say no because you're not interested in the 5-minute patient service or the 15 minutes, the stereotypical textbook. You have 15 minutes with the patient. What I'm hearing from you is you're not interested in that.
Yeah.
I think society wants to come to your office because they want to be heard. They want to be treated. They want this empathy. They want this whole thing that you're putting out. So I think there's a great shift that's coming. And I don't know if the three of us will ever see it in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But I think there's a shift coming where there's going to be some pushback against
I agree.
Big medicine, big pharma, insurance companies, and all this other crap that's really running our lives. And I think that shift has started.
I agree.
It's just going to take.
It's going to be a slow burn.
It'll take a long time to change the gears, right? Because the people that have their little paws deep into the pockets, will have to figure out how they can make money off of it. But I think that's coming.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting to hear that from you. That I'm probably not going to take it. We're going to remain a cash service, and because we're interested in providing the right service as opposed to being a commodity farm.
Exactly. I don't see, I've just seen, I know so many MDs who have left and formed, like the concierge practices and things, for that exact reason. They can't provide the kind of care that they want to provide. And I just, the way that I practice and what I see people needing, I just can't imagine being forced into some kind of box where I couldn't do that. That there wouldn't be any point in me practicing.
Right. That does seem to be the complaint from providers. I'm not really in those circles, but my limited exposure to that does seem to be the complaint from the providers is I used to be able to treat people. Now I've got to do this. And I want to get back to these roots of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Exactly.
I hope that continues, right? Because that's kind of the magical part of what we're doing.
It's the healing's happening not just in the treatment room, but it's happening in society as a whole right now. And it's slow, but I think we're all, we keep touching on that. I think all of us in different ways are seeing it, and we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. What else we need to put on here? Anything else you want to talk about before we?
I don't have anything else.
You got a bunch. Yeah. Just getting it out of you.
Yeah.
All right. Miss Amanda, anything else that we've not talked about that we need to get on the show tonight? Okay. Well, we'll put links to your website, and then we'll get some other information when we turn the recorder off here in a minute and see what other links we need to put, what other resources we want to put. So for anybody listening, if there's resources that we need to provide, then let's put them in our show notes.
Okay.
And we'll get all those from you. And I guess that's it, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't too bad, was it?
No, not at all.
I've been staring at your earrings. They're very festive.
Are they? Are they fun?
Yeah. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you came.
Yeah,
it's been a good show.
Having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that'll do it. We'll see everybody next time.